Ignored by love, respected by a maid. The billionaire's unexpected story. Richard Henderson sat in his wheelchair by the grand window of his estate, watching the autumn leaves drift past the glass like memories he could no longer chase. At 58 years old, he had everything money could buy, yet the silence in his mansion felt heavier than any burden he had carried in his corporate life. The accident had happened 2 years ago. A moment of distraction, a wet road, and everything changed. The same determination that had built his empire now fueled his recovery, but his wife Claire seemed to have stopped seeing him the day the wheelchair became part of their lives. She stood across the room now, elegant in her tailored grey suit, her attention fixed on her phone. The red circle on the screen seemed to glow brighter than her wedding ring ever had. Richard watched her fingers move across the glass, responding to messages from a world he no longer seemed to inhabit. "Claire," he said softly, "I thought we might have dinner together tonight. Just the two of us." She glanced up briefly, her expression polite but distant. "I have a charity board meeting." "You know how important my work is." He did know. He knew everything about her schedule, because it was all she ever talked about anymore. Not the life they had built, not the dreams they had shared, not the man who still loved her despite everything. Just meetings, galas, and obligations that conveniently kept her away from home. "Of course," Richard replied, forcing a smile. "Maybe tomorrow, then." Claire was already looking back at her phone. Maybe. The word hung in the air like a promise neither of them believed anymore. Richard turned his wheelchair toward the hallway, the familiar whir of the motor filling the space where conversation used to be. That was when he heard the gentle knock on the door frame. Maria stood there. A woman in her early 50s, with kind eyes and a warm smile that seemed to carry its own light. She wore her simple housekeeping uniform with quiet dignity, her hands folded respectfully in front of her. "Mr. Henderson, I have prepared your afternoon tea in the garden room. The sun is beautiful today. I thought you might enjoy it there." Something in her voice made Richard pause. Not pity, not duty, but genuine care. It was a tone he had not heard in his own home for longer than he cared to remember. "Thank you, Maria, that sounds wonderful." As he wheeled himself toward the garden room, he noticed Claire barely looked up. Her world had narrowed to the screen in her hands, and he was no longer part of it. The garden room was Richard's favorite place in the house. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the rose garden his mother had planted 30 years ago. Maria had set up a small table with tea, fresh scones, and even a vase with a single red rose. "You remembered," Richard said, touching the soft petals. Maria smiled as she poured the tea with steady hands. "You mentioned once that red roses were your mother's favorite. I thought it might brighten your day." Richard felt something crack in his chest, a wall he had built to protect himself from the loneliness of his own home. "You listen." "Of course, Mr. Henderson, everyone deserves to be heard." Over the following weeks, a quiet friendship developed between them. Maria would bring his meals and stay to talk. Not because it was her job, but because she seemed to genuinely enjoy his company. She asked about his life, his work, his dreams from before the accident. She listened when he spoke about his frustrations with physical therapy, his sadness about his failing marriage, his fear that his life had become smaller than the wheelchair he sat in. "You know," Maria said one afternoon as they watched the rain streak down the windows, "my late husband Carlos had a stroke 5 years before he passed. Everyone thought his life was over, including him at first." Richard leaned forward. "What changed?" He did. He realized that life had not ended. It had just changed direction. He started teaching neighborhood kids to play chess from his bed. He wrote letters to old friends. He learned to paint with his left hand when his right one would not cooperate. He told me that losing his mobility taught him what really mattered. "And what was that?" Richard asked quietly. Maria's eyes were soft with memory. "Connection, love, leaving something good behind." He said he had spent 50 years chasing success and only his last 5 learning how to live. The words settled into Richard's heart, like seeds waiting for the right season to grow. One evening, as Maria helped him into the dining room, they found Claire there with another man. He was younger, confident, dressed in an expensive suit that Richard recognized, because he used to wear ones just like it. The man's hand was on Claire's arm, too familiar, too comfortable. Claire's face flushed, but not with shame, with annoyance at being caught. "Richard, this is Derek. He is helping me with the foundation's investment portfolio." The lie was thin enough to see through. Richard looked at the man, then at his wife, and felt a strange calm wash over him. Not anger, not even hurt anymore, just clarity. "I see," Richard said simply. "Maria, would you mind helping me to the study? I have some matters to attend to." As they left the room, he heard Claire's sharp intake of breath. She had expected confrontation, tears, drama. Instead, he gave her nothing but his back. In the study, Maria helped him settle behind his desk. Her hand rested briefly on his shoulder, a gesture of solidarity that spoke volumes. "Are you all right, Mr. Henderson?" Richard looked up at her honest face, at the concern in her eyes, and realized something profound. "You know, Maria, I think I am. For the first time in 2 years, I think I actually am." The next morning, Richard called his lawyer. Within a week, divorce papers were filed. Claire was shocked, then angry, then desperately apologetic when she realized what she was about to lose. But Richard's decision was final. He had spent too long being invisible in his own home. During those difficult days, Maria was there, not as a servant but as a friend. She brought him coffee when he worked late on the settlement details. She listened when he needed to talk. She reminded him to rest when he pushed himself too hard. "You are being very generous to her," Maria observed one afternoon, reviewing the settlement terms he had agreed to. Richard shrugged. "Money I have plenty of. Peace of mind is worth more than any amount I could keep from her." "That is very wise. I learned from a good teacher," Richard said with a smile. As the divorce proceeded, something else began to happen. Richard started physical therapy again with renewed commitment. He joined a support group for people with mobility challenges. He reached out to old friends he had lost touch with during his marriage. He even started writing, something he had loved as a young man but had abandoned in pursuit of success. And through it all, Maria was there. They talked about everything from literature to philosophy, to the simple pleasure of a well-made cup of tea. Richard found himself laughing again, really laughing, in a way he had almost forgotten was possible. One spring morning, 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Richard asked Maria to join him in the garden. The roses were in full bloom, their fragrance sweet in the warm air. "Maria, I have something I want to ask you, and I need you to be completely honest with me." She looked at him with those kind eyes, waiting. "Why have you been so good to me?" "You could have just done your job and nothing more. Why did you care?" Maria was quiet for a moment, her gaze distant. "When my Carlos was sick, people stopped seeing him. They saw the stroke, the wheelchair, the limitations. But I still saw the man I loved. I saw his mind, his heart, his soul. Those things had not changed." She turned to look at Richard directly. "When I came to work here, I saw the same thing happening to you. A good man being erased by other people's discomfort and fear. I could not stand by and watch that happen again. So I decided to see you, really see you, the way everyone deserves to be seen." Richard felt tears prick his eyes. "You gave me my life back, Maria. You reminded me that I am still here. Still worth something. You always were, Mr. Henderson. I just held up a mirror." As the weeks turned to months, their friendship deepened into something more. It happened slowly, naturally, like the change of seasons. A touch that lingered a moment too long. Laughter that filled more than just the room. Conversations that stretched late into the evening. Because neither wanted them to end. Richard knew he was falling in love, but this time it felt different. It was not built on attraction and ambition like his marriage had been. It was built on respect, understanding, and the profound intimacy of truly being known by another person. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink, Richard reached for Maria's hand. "I know I'm not the man I used to be," he said quietly. "I cannot dance with you or take you hiking, or do 1,000 things I once took for granted. But I can promise you this, I will see you every day. Really see you the way you have seen me. I will listen to you, respect you, and treasure every moment we have together." Maria's eyes filled with tears as she squeezed his hand. "Richard, you are exactly the man you are supposed to be, and that man is more than enough." They married that autumn, surrounded by close friends, and the roses that had witnessed the beginning of their love story. Claire heard about it through mutual acquaintances, and sent a bitter message about betrayal and replacement. But Richard did not let her poison touch their happiness. He had learned something invaluable from his journey. True love is not about perfection or circumstances. It is about seeing another person completely, accepting them fully, and choosing them daily. It is about being present, being honest, and being brave enough to start again when life takes an unexpected turn. On their wedding night, as Maria helped him into bed with the same gentle care she had always shown, Richard pulled her close. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For reminding me that I am more than my limitations. For showing me that respect and kindness matter more than wealth and status. For loving me when I had forgotten how to love myself." Maria kissed his forehead softly. "Thank you for letting me. Thank you for seeing me too." As they held each other in the quiet darkness of their shared home, Richard realized that his accident had not taken his life from him. It had simply revealed what his life was supposed to be all about. And sometimes the greatest blessings come wrapped in the hardest challenges. The wheelchair had not diminished him. It had simply cleared away everything that did not matter, leaving only what was real, what was true, and what was worth holding on to. And in Maria's arms, he had found all three. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about love, resilience, and the unexpected paths that lead us home. Leave a comment below and tell us about a time when someone saw the real you when others could not. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it today.